Okay, here we go with more refined painting. The challenge is largely not just to focus on areas that are interesting, but to try to treat the whole of the composition each time you go about painting. You'll notice little things that you can play with. He has this lovely scar at the tip of his nose. Bring in color anywhere you can. If that's something you're interested in. You widen highlights. And if you try something that doesn't work, there's always Command-Z. So it's not like every mark you make is final. Can't be modified. But except for the outside of the head, anything that needs to be erased is just painted over. When it's trying to keep the background blank. So don't worry so much about the edges until the end, and we can just erase those back. It's better to go over the edge. So squinting at your reference, squinting at your navigator, seeing where things don't quite make sense, knocking them back. Trying to bring color into all the colors you've used into all aspects. Critique even the most basic things. Especially your overall proportions. Be willing to change them. All the energy of the beginning of the painting is a great way to start and get you into it. But now is your more analytical, kind of critical going over of all of those choices and placements. And some of them are not going to be as beneficial as others. When we're going fast at the beginning, we are more energetic, we are more creative, we're more daring, but we also tend more towards the generic. And so to get it to look like an actual person's ear, now I have to really kind of analyze where the folds are, where the shapes are. Make it specific. And yet not more heavily treated than any other part of the composition. Now the reason I was so bold with color early on is because this phase where you're kind of blending between things tends to make everything kind of muddy. So it's not a bad idea to go back every once in a while. Look at your inspirations for different treatments. And though you could get away with, because you've set your own palette, with mostly just stealing colors from yourself, it can be very helpful to challenge that view a little bit. take toys from a different sandbox. And remember, this is all on top of things we've done before. I find it interesting to isolate the layers you're working on. So this is my refined paint layer so far. And you see if I started with a brush this small and this low opacity, it's more tentative. It would take me a long time to build anything up. And if I did that with just a refined kind of paint brush on white, it would take a long time to build anything that really showed what I want. But here's the beauty. Once I finish this, if I like, I could turn off every other layer and just show this, and it would still be my work and my interpretation. But it really takes all those layers together to make it work. And there's still some areas where gray is peeking through where I need to actually paint it in, even though I'm on the refined paint layer. And the shape of this eye is a little off. Now, if you get into being refined enough, I'm not there yet, but then you can change your brush from being sensitive to scale with pressure under shape dynamics, and instead you can make it sensitive to pin pressure in terms of its opacity. But I still like using a fairly large brush. So I tend to deal with that smoothing just by, if I wanted to go for photorealistic, just taking that opacity down more and more and smoothing more and more, and not using such a diverse value range, color range in the painting. You can every once in a while do a little test, especially if you're using as much color as I am, and hold down Option and say Layer, Merge Visible, right? And then just do an image adjustment where you desaturate, take out all the color. And then you can see if the value scale is working. Now, obviously, that's not right. That's not right. There's some areas, but mostly, if I cover those up, the lighting across his head is working. It's maybe a little more tentative than it needs to be. I can go darker in this ravine. So that can give me confidence. And then if I wanted to desaturate the colors I use, I could always blend that in, that desaturated layer, into what I painted. So there we go. There's something just slightly colored. And then that's going to look really colorful when I bring it back. And that's okay. These are all things that can be adjusted at the end. But just like it's easier to soften a hard edge, it's easier to desaturate saturated color than it is to saturate unsaturated color. And just like other projects we've done, we could glaze it with texture overlays at the end if we wanted to, with color overlays or gradients. That's really how you get those really kind of smooth digital portrait looks. And that's not hard. It's just you need to have something solid underneath, and that's what we're working on. Instead of using a photo or using other people's pixels, we're trying to build it all ourselves here. There aren't a whole lot of shortcuts. So what we're doing now is really modeling the form and trying to notice, where planes angle differently and catch the light differently. And then, of course, there's the local color. So, for instance, James Baldwin has this patch on his lower lip, which is bright pink, which is a local color difference than the rest of his lower lip. So not only is that significant, it's also getting kind of the lighting on his lip as it goes from shadow on one side into light on the other side. Well, this is about edge as much as it is about value. Like, where does the edge turn and where does it stop? Where does the crease of the mouth end? This goes into this nice little kind of V shape that I can overstate and then smooth in. And then there's a highlight above the upper lip, kind of showing where the skin turns from the outside of the mouth to the inside of the mouth. That's basically what lips are. It's the outside of the mouth spilling out. The place where likeness is most easily seen is in the arrangement of the eyes and the nose and the lips. We talked about that, and like the space that he has between his upper lip and his nose is pretty distinctive. Doesn't follow the normal template. But then also, it's in things like the ears. Everyone has very unique ears. The shape of the upper and lower lip, everyone has a different, unique combination of that. But everyone's skulls look pretty similar. So those are the structural items, like where the eye sockets are, where the nasal cavity is. We'll notice those right away if they're just not looking human. But in terms of getting specific likeness, you have to pay attention to these other little features. The width of the nostrils, the slope of the nose. And this has to do with age as well. As you age, your nose and your ears, because they're cartilage, they continue to grow at a pretty consistent rate. While the bone of your face is kind of set after puberty at the same size. So the older your subject matter is, the longer their ears will pull from their eye line and nose line, and the more the bridge of the nose will push out, making their eyes look more and more deep set. I think that's why plastic surgery doesn't always make someone look younger.